Hi everyone, I'm Matthew Dunne from Dispatch Cloud, and today we're going to be talking to Chloë Thomas about her work within the e-commerce sector. Welcome to the podcast, Chloë. Who is Chloë Thomas?
Oh, hi Matthew, thanks for inviting me on your show. Who am I? That's a big old question, which probably has, I don't know, I probably talked for about 3 hours on various theories of what that might be, but I guess what I am most these days is the chief success strategist at Metco Media, which is my media company where we create content to help e-commerce brands make better decisions and to help SaaS and agency companies get their name in front of, get traction with that audience.
Very good. And who's the kind of typical customer or client base that you guys would work with?
We work with all sizes of agencies and software, to be honest, because we got everything from ads in newsletters right the way up to 6-month, 12-month podcast sponsorship packages. So you can imagine the variety of pricing and objectives and audience that can encompass. So we work with everybody from Shopify down, basically. I suppose, if that's not too annoying an answer for you.
No, we get asked the same question quite often, is who do we work with? And it's the same, we work with everyone from enterprise customers to SMEs to kind of middle ground. And it's, I totally understand. You must see some very interesting things in your day-to-day activities then, and I imagine 2 days are never the same.
Rarely the same. I'm always like fighting between the projects I want to deliver, the content I've got to create, what the team needs from me, and then in conference season, it just becomes a whole other beautiful nightmare.
So how did you get here? What made you start this business? How did you get to the point where you're doing this? Because obviously it's quite an extensive pool of customers and an extensive knowledge base that you need to do something like this, and you're obviously excelling in it. So I'm just keen to know how we ended up here.
A series of happy accidents, to be honest, which make a lot of sense looking backwards at them, but don't make a lot of sense at all at the time. So I ended up in e-commerce by accident because I was doing an internship at Barclays Bank in marketing and hated it. So I needed a route out. And back in the day, you would flick through Marketing Week and look at all the jobs. So I applied to everything. And the first job I got was working for older listeners will remember this, the High Street Business Pastimes, running their catalogue mailings and some of their online activity. And then that went under. And then I luckily fell into a job with a company called Ardington, which had the carrot of creating a marketing agency at the end of that. So worked with six different mail order brands during that year. Then started a marketing agency, ran that for 10 years, which was an error, but learned a lot. And then spent a couple of years trying to find ways that would be fun and where I could make money. And that was in 2007, that part of the journey started. And now, 14 years later, I think it now is, or something, I am now, clearly can't do maths for anyone who's trying to add up. But does that come to 14? No, it doesn't come to 14. But I am now running what's become quite a fascinating media business. Yeah,
it really sounds like it. I've been told by my team that you could consider yourself not to be a consultant. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's very interesting to me.
I mean, it's interesting. You get, I'm sure you get a lot of this as well. The cold emails that you get of people trying to sell you stuff, and frequently people seem to think I run an e-commerce brand. I don't do that. They also frequently still think I run an agency. I mean, it's been a long time since I ran the agency. And then I also get a lot of people, especially on the software side, software people, coming to me asking for warm intros to retailers and to brands. I'm not a consultant. I don't work with any brands or retailers. I speak to an awful lot of them via the podcast and research and everything else, but I don't work with any of them. So I don't think I think consultants work with brands and I don't with brands. Yeah,
it's an important distinction. I think you're right. I think consultants work and they're usually paid by brands to give consultative advice.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you're in a slightly different space. But it's interesting that there is a perceived crossover, and you can probably understand why people make that assumption when you're talking to brands all the time.
Well, yeah, I get it, because a lot of the podcast, I'm probably best known as a podcaster or as a speaker, and a lot of podcasters and speakers are consultants. That's why they podcast. That's why they speak. But I think sometimes people are a bit taken aback when they're like, "Oh, will you come and speak for free in front of this audience that's 300 miles from where you live? And there's going to be 500 of them in there. Come and do it for free." I'm like, no. But why? Why would you do it for free? Because I'm sure you've got a brilliant audience. But for me to take 2 days out of the office, pay all the travel, etc., I am down on the deal before I get to the train station, because I'm not trying to sell to your audience. So
yeah, 100%, yeah,
it just doesn't stack up. If you want to pay me, though, I'll be there. But yeah, so it's quite often, I think that's, people assume I'm a consultant because I do the sorts of things you see consultants doing without doing the actual consulting, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, so you get all the good parts, but just not the awkward bits at the end where you're trying to push the agendas that you potentially might want to push if you were in consultancy.
Yeah, I would describe that as all the good bits, because I have done consultancy in the past, and it can be an awful lot of fun, but it's not my favourite place to be. So yeah, I would say I get to do the fun bits consultants do, but none of the actual consulting.
Sounds good. So you obviously work with a lot of brands in relation to talking to them and stuff like that, and you obviously work with lots of different businesses. One of the things I'm interested to know is, how are they finding scaling in today's climate? What kind of challenges are businesses facing to scale at the moment?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's like I have a love-hate relationship with the word growth, for starters, which is why my job title now has success in it and not growth, because I think fundamentally to be going after growth at all costs is a bad move. Partly influenced by the sustainability and the Save the Planet movement, partly influenced by the need for profit, and quite frankly, wouldn't you rather make profit than just turnover? So when but the natural way of a business, if you're doing something right, then you are going to be growing. So let me stop waffling on about my disagreements with the word growth. But I think what's challenging at the moment is we've reached a point of saturation in the market. If you think of it like a product life cycle, and market, filling up the market, I think e-commerce in the UK in particular has now reached the point where we've reached market capacity. We did it a couple of years ago, and we're now really feeling it, where we are no longer on the land grab, like, oh, no one else sells this online. If I start selling this online, I'll make loads. We're no longer in that scenario where there's more and more consumers starting to buy online. Pretty much the great majority are now buying online. So it's now become a lot more competitive, which is a huge mental shift from what we've been doing before. What we've been doing the whole of my career up until now, so 20 odd years, has been a land grab in e-commerce. We now have to become proper marketers, overtake our competition, find ways to cut through the huge marketing noise that's out there. So yeah, it's becoming a lot harder to just quickly grow. Plus, we're in the space where we've no longer got, probably thankfully, a tap you can just turn on. You'll remember a few years ago, it was like, we launched Facebook ads and did 1 million in 30 seconds, or all those kind of stories.
Yeah, I do. And I more recently, I remember it with TikTok, people going on TikTok and just turning it on, so to speak, and just doing crazy numbers of sales. But it's changing, as you say, changing a lot now. There aren't many things that are not sold on the internet. There aren't many people who don't buy off the internet right now.
You've got to be better. You've got to be cleverer. And what's really fascinating is, like, if you monitor it by what the guests want to talk about when they come on our podcast, we're doing a lot of talk around acquisition at the moment. Now, I haven't gone out there going, I want to talk about acquisition in 2025, but brands are coming on. I said, what would you like to chat about? Oh, we did this acquisition. Or actually, the story of this business is we acquired it and then we grew it. So which I think is a natural part of that growth, or that life cycle of the industry, is you reach a point where actually how you grow is by acquisition, not by creating something new every time.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really interesting. Like, we obviously work with a lot of e-commerce brands in what we do, providing logistics software, and we've seen some of the brands that we work with either being bought by other brands in the same space, or them themselves buying and then expanding out through acquisition. So I think, there's quite a big company we used to work with who did books, and they got completely swallowed up, so to speak. And then some other companies we work with that I know more recently have done it, and I think interesting area, which brings its own challenges as they kind of try and then merge two businesses into one or three businesses into one, etc. But certainly an interesting way to grow that I'm seeing a lot more of with our customer base.
Yeah, it seems to be. I think it's going to be a hot topic this year: is mergers, acquisitions, etc. As people chase that fleeting idea of lower overheads when you merge, which does not always come to pass, but can come to pass as well. So we shall see.
100%. So how would you go about, or how do you go about identifying or helping to identify optimal strategies for people to grow? Like, we've talked about acquisitions, like how would we get to the point where we're talking about acquisitions in relation to working with e-commerce or talking to e-commerce people, or other strategies that they might use?
I mean, I'm kind of like a step back from actually advising the brands one-on-one. So what we do as a business is we survey our audience and find out what they're interested in, what they think is going on, and then we keep an eye on the conversations that are going, and then try and match the content which we're putting out to what brands need to hear about. Sometimes there's an element of Chloe thinks you need to hear about this, and sometimes it's a bit more, well, obviously you really want to hear about this because you're signing up to this. So we did a webinar on our eCommerce Explored brand a couple of weeks ago, which was all about analytics. And I mean, I love a bit of analytics, but it's quite dull. So you kind of go, well, why are people, I'm sure this is going to be one of our bad sign-up webinars. Well, at the moment, it's done better than our How to Be Successful in 2025 webinar for sign-ups. And it's pretty much on par with TikTok, which I thought was going to, wipe the floor with everybody for numbers this year. So sometimes the audience surprise you with what they want to learn about, and what they're seeing as being a route to growth, but certainly themes which a couple of years ago I would never have assumed we were going to be covering are things like team efficiency and back-end operations efficiency, which I think partly comes out of the AI piece. And analytics, I'd never have thought we'd be doing sessions on analytics and trying to work out how to structure your analytics tech stack and stuff. So there's always something new to be looking at. I hope that answered your question, but I feel I may have gone tangential. In which case,
I think it did to an extent. I think one of the things that's interesting about what you've just said is team efficiency. So we, one of our biggest USPs, I suppose, is that every piece of software that we build, we look at the efficiency of how, in short, our software is lightning fast, and that's the thing that I want. Everything inside the software to be lightning fast, no matter what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I gave a talk a couple of years ago at a show, and my entire talk was about efficiency and something as simple as logging into the software. Like, if you've got a warehouse with 30, 40 people, and they're all logging in 2 or 3 times a day, we did some numbers which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like about £7,000 or £8,000 a year it equated to in wages, paying people to log in and out of software. And you replace that with something like an RFID band or a scan, and all of a sudden it takes milliseconds. And I think when people are buying off us right now, one of the things that they are very interested in is how to track efficiency of people. And it's an interesting area, obviously, as well as AI and all the other things that are buzz at the moment. But team efficiency is a very interesting one. And I think, you can see where people are trying to save money. And obviously staff, unfortunately, are one of the most expensive things that any business has.
Indeed. And I think it's interesting you mentioned AI in there, because I think the push to AI has actually had more of an impact on people going, oh, we could be more efficient, than it has in the content generative space.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I use AI for everything. Like I know a lot of people say that, but like I use it all day, every day for generating emails, generating content, doing my own thing. Writing emails to my team, I use AI. And I don't necessarily just say, here's a prompt, get an email and send it. I use it as a starting point to then build upon, right? But loads of people who work for me don't. But what they do is, like you've just said, they use it as a prompt to kind of think, oh, well, we could do this a different way. And certainly with the companies that we're talking to and that we're working with, I see that a lot. It's like, oh, someone down the pub was telling me about AI, and I was thinking we could do this differently. Or with the bigger companies, it's, well, we've got lots of data. How can we use that data to be more efficient?
It's like it's almost become a shorthand for building efficiency in systems rather than necessarily using AI.
100%. There's loads. Yeah.
It's always amazed me how in many e-commerce businesses, back when I was a consultant, back when I was working at the agency, I used to go to a lot of e-commerce businesses' head offices. And it was amazing how shockingly out of date their technology was, and both in terms of software and in terms of hardware. And you'd think, why are you setting your team up for failure? Because, they have to come in the morning, turn on the PC, and it won't work for 10 minutes. So why are you not setting this up? And it's like, finally, it feels like the blinkers have come off. And it's like, actually, if we let the team use Zapier, they can make our email marketing more effective or something. And it's like this penny has dropped in the last 6-12 months, which is obviously being felt massively in the call center and the warehousing space, where it's very easy to see inefficiencies, and where, because of the huge amounts of data being crunched, there is huge AI opportunities. But I think it's impacting head office activity as well in quite a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think one of the big areas we're seeing it is customer service bots. There's so many customer service bots out there. We have one as well. Who doesn't nowadays? But yeah, customer service bots. One of the companies we work with put the customer service bot in, and it cuts down about 78% of kind of standard customer service inquiries overnight, just like that. And all of a sudden, your agents can focus on more pressing matters to keep customers happy. In my own business, in our own support, we're just starting to use it now for kind of generic customer service stuff. And it's just such an easy win. And yeah, very interesting space and what you can do with it.
Well, and it is kind of like, if people are messaging in going, where is my parcel? And your team are having to copy and paste their code and put it in another piece of software. And then
know who you are, people. Yeah, everyone knows it.
And then you've got to copy and paste that answer back over to send it back out again. Why is a human being forced to do that truly tedious scenario where, because they're a human being, there is margin for error, when you could just integrate those two software systems to actually automate such things? And all of a sudden, you've got a happier team who are able to do those nice to have upsells. They've got more time on the phones. They've got more time to create better quality emails to people who are umming and ahhing between different products. And it's all of a sudden you're able to create a lot more from the resources you've got by using technology to do what technology should be doing, I would argue.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's scary how many people don't embrace technology because they're scared of it, or they think it might replace jobs. But actually, doesn't have to replace jobs. It means that people can be more efficient and they can do other things that are more beneficial to your business. Coming back to growth, like acquiring other businesses is a way to grow, but being more efficient is another way to grow because you can get more time and reinvest it in.
Well, and one of the other big topics around, to cut through this much busier marketplace we're now in, is to build connection with your customers, to build great customer service experiences, to be there and able to respond to them. And if your team who are responsible for actually one-on-one communication with your customers have got the time to do it better, then the impact of everything else you do in the business becomes stronger, because they're having that when they want that high quality one-on-one conversation, they can have it because the person who's having the conversation with them has had the time to be trained properly on the products, has got the time to respond properly because they've not got 5 other customers going, where's my parcel? flashing up on their screen. It's hard to calculate, but it has to make logical sense. Has to.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I always think on this topic is I myself, in my personal life, buy a lot of Amazon. Now, I have nothing bad or good to say about Amazon. I'm indifferent to it. But the reason I shop with Amazon is because there's a certain standard that I know I'm going to get if there's a problem. There's a certain standard of delivery service I know I'm going to get. And one of the things, if you're trying to move away from Amazon and sell on your own website, is building trust with customers. And one of the best ways to build trust with customers is to just have exceptional customer service and exceptional post-purchase experience, so that they're not then going back to Amazon because that's the safe haven that they know,
Yeah, you've got to give the customer what they want, and they don't necessarily want a human being going, yes, your parcel will be there tomorrow. It's like, that could be done much, much more quickly. But by the same token, if you get stuck with an AI which will not enable you to ask the question you actually want to ask. I got stuck on one the other day on someone's website, some software company's website, not in the e-commerce space, before anyone tries to work out who this is. And it was like, it gave me various automated decisions. Like, no, I know exactly what I need to ask you, but I went through it twice trying to find a way to ask the question I wanted to ask, and it wouldn't let me ask it. And it's like, man, I'm not fitting into your little box. That's why I am trying to use your chat, but you're not allowing me to do it. So we go back to that world of the press 1 for account, press 2 for this, and you can end up in that place if you set up. Then that's how we set up the tools, isn't it? And if you set the tools up badly, however good the tools are, you're always going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of embrace the language recognition that AI offers and allow people to free text and kind of go from there and use that intelligently to give you what you want, to mimic that person experience in a way that's good, rather than limiting people to kind of 1, 2, 3, or 4 as the options. Yeah, absolutely. From a technology point of view, though, we've talked a little bit about AI. Is there any other technology that you think has transformed or is in the process of transforming the e-commerce industry?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I've always been a big believer in there's no one piece of software that works for everybody. That you have to, as a brand or as any business, you have to go, what do we actually want, and therefore find the right piece for you. So I'm loath to mention any specific piece of tech. What I would say is, I think the 2 tech trends that we're seeing at the moment, one is a level of tech stack consolidation within brands. I always see the grumpy old man at the end of the table going, how many subscriptions am I paying for? It's kind of like, that's like, we can't possibly need all of that. I'm just going to cancel some type scenario. But there is kind of like this, do we need all these tools? Because tools have evolved an awful lot over the last 5 years, and a lot of brands are only using 10% of what they've bought from anybody. So there has to be a place for going and having a rational look through it all and going, well, hold on a minute. We're paying for this same service 5 times, but we just haven't been clever enough to put it in place with the right thing. So a sensible look through in terms of tech stack consolidation. And then the other big trend is partly because we need to give a better customer experience because of huger amounts of competition in the space, partly because of this move towards efficiency, which means we need to actually have, to make, whether you're talking machine learning, automations, or AI, you've got to have the right data in the first place to enable them to do their jobs. So this is the big trend I am failing to mention, is the need to pull your data into one place, like your product data, your order data, your customer data, and so on and so forth. But then also, once you've got that data in one place, to then kind of, I call it democratizing the data throughout the business. So as those who need to get access to that data can, those who need to work on that data can, rather than, for example, the stock data being held on the merchandising spreadsheet or something, or the marketing results being held by the marketing team. All of this needs to be brought together. So as everybody who can use it has access to it without spending 3 days creating a report to make the decisions they need to make. And then we are automating that data out to the places it needs to go to enable us to produce better results. So you look at Meta ads, TikTok ads, Google ads, they're all hungry for data now. And the more data, the more accurate data we can give them, the better their algorithms can do as a job for us. It's about feeding the algorithm now, not about being really good at ticking the right boxes at the back end of Ad Manager. So I think anyone who isn't investing in their tech stack in terms of how can we bring all our data together, automate its accuracy, and then spin it out to the team members and the analysis, the dashboards, the suppliers, and the tech we need it to go to is missing a trick. So yeah, consolidation and data would be my two tips for tech at the moment.
Sorry, excuse me. I think that's a really interesting point, because the amount of people who don't consolidate their data, and we have people using our software, obviously in the WMS space, we bring in a lot of data, but the amount of people who don't connect aspects of that and therefore don't get the full benefit of it, whether that be supplier information because they're worried about people having access to their prices, or whether that be bringing in all of their sales data across their entire business because they don't want all of that in one place because they're concerned about it, which kind of leads me on to the next thing is, as we are in the land of data and we've got data going to, AI engines that we don't necessarily know what they're doing with that data, do you think brands should be worried about data security and privacy? And I'm not just talking about PII data, because obviously there's legal regulatory things about that, but should they be worried about all of their data? And
yes.
Is that concern?
Yes, fundamentally, because your data is, whether we're talking product copy or we're talking customer database, it's absolutely critical to your success now as a business and your success in 10 years' time as a business. So you should really care for it and care what happens to it and care where it goes. So yes, you should be asking, if you've got tools tools you already use that are bringing in AI models, or you've got tools that you're thinking of sending your data to, you should be making sure, asking them the difficult questions. Are you storing the data GDPR compliantly? What levels of protection have you got on our product data? Can you guarantee no competitors ever going to see this, or that your team aren't going to log in and use it for their own ends? All these kind of levels of protection we should be keeping an eye on, and we should be making sure we're asking the questions. It's part of the tech purchasing journey now. It never used to be. People didn't consider it, but we should now be most definitely thinking about this.
Yeah, and I think also if you're watching, you're worried about what questions to ask, you can actually come back to AI. You can use something like GPT to ask the kind of, what questions should be I asking if I'm going to purchase this software? It isn't like you need to have a legal team on standby advising you. There's easy ways to get access to the kind of information you need to know this.
Very much so.
Okay, so customer loyalty. Something post-purchase, customer loyalty, we've talked about, there's plenty of competition out there now. Brands are consolidating and looking to act more efficiently acquisition. But how much emphasis should people be putting on customer loyalty?
I think it depends on your business model. I frequently use the example of a company called Turtle Mats who sell very nice doormats. Now, the average house in the UK has something like 1.2 doors. So, and their doormats have a 10-year guarantee on them. So, yeah, loyalty. Yes, you're going to get a few customers who are going to buy multiple mats. Do they need to put 50% of their marketing budget into loyalty? No, maybe 5% at most if they've run out of other things to do. So you have to think about how important loyalty and retention are within your business and how that functions. It really does vary from business to business. Saying that, though, for the great majority of businesses, you are going to see your profits be an awful lot higher on the second purchase than you see them on the first purchase. So working to build customer retention, to build repeat purchase rates is definitely a good thing to do. Whether you call that loyalty, community, retention, subscription, I don't really mind. The model, and the word that works for you is the key thing. But the really key thing, she should say, so that's just words, the really key thing is not thinking you can slap a piece of tech on it and deliver the results. The success comes from working out how to build the right sort of connection with your customers. Does it come back to, as you were saying with Amazon earlier, I just need it to work. I just need the hygiene to work, to be reliable. That's all I need. I don't need gifts in my parcels. I don't need pretty packaging. I just need it to work. But if you're a different brand and you want to inspire that loyalty, inspire your customers to be talking about you in places, then maybe you need to be finding ways of potentially creating an influencer group or VIP groups, or you create Facebook groups, or you create better post-purchase welcome sequences. You're building in subscription activity. How it works with different businesses is going to be different, but I think what we need to mostly do is think about loyalty and connection with a brand as a big concept, not as a piece of tech or a points thing to slap on a business. Points may be the right route for you, but it's not, oh, we've got a retention problem, let's do a loyalty points program. There's about 8 levels of strategy between those 2 points you have to work out before you can know the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting as well how many people do just slap some tech on it. They'll sign up to a program and that's it, job done. And I think you're very right. It doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It's about how you build a connection, how you identify what the right connection to build is.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so tell us a bit more about your media company then, and the mission that your media company is on.
It's also a Metco Media is my media company. We have a number of different audiences that I describe as transatlantic. They're a little bit global. We've got the eCommerce tech website that lists tech, weirdly enough, and also has quite a thriving blog. We've got 2 podcasts, eCommerce Master Plan and Keep Optimizing. We've got a webinar series, and we've got 2 newsletters. And the audiences of all of those are distinct. We don't have a lot of overlap between the different content pieces that we put out, but they also all have one thing in common, which is they want to find a way to make their e-commerce business more successful. So, and we have it's usually the decision makers who are listening in or watching or reading. So we are all about helping them make better decisions by giving them the inspiration and the guidance to enable them to do that. So we're not a training company. We're kind of more of an inspiration company, I suppose. And the goal, because it's very nice to do that for the brands, but it doesn't put a lot of food on the table on in and of itself. And then we have various advertising packages and partnership packages that we do with software companies and agencies to enable them to get in front of our audiences. So it's a fairly simple model. The aim is that it should bring success for everybody. It's a bit of a virtuous circle. The better it is for the brands, the better it is for our customers, the software and the agencies, and then the better it is for us.
So the question I'm dying to ask you, because I can tell when you're talking how passionate you are, is do you enjoy it? But I think the answer might be quite obvious.
Yes, I wouldn't do it if I didn't. I mean, there's bad days. This morning was a bad day. One of our the sync between our Airtable and one of our websites is broken. Shouldn't have broken, has broken. No one's quite sure how to fix it. So this morning was quite stressful, but we'll get there. And if the website doesn't get an update for a couple of days, no one's going to, be too miserable.
Not the end of the world, is it? Things happen.
No one out there is going, but why? Why is this listing not yet live on your website? And if they are, they're going to have to take a chill pill. But I'm not aware that they are at the moment. So, I mean, there are bad days, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it. When I sold my marketing agency, I was on a mission to try and find a way I could make enough money and be happy. So every decision I've made in my career, in my business since then has been about eliminating things that don't make me happy or don't make me money. I do occasionally eliminate them, but it's normally things that don't make me happy that I eliminate, and learning from what has worked to then find ways where we can do both money and happy. But it's all about money and happy, basically.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have money, you can't be happy because you won't be able to buy stuff. So,
Well, yeah, I find I'm a much happier person if there's a bit of financial buffer.
Yeah, that's more important. You don't want to be worrying about it, especially if you're doing the kind of thing you're doing where your passion and everything comes through. You don't want to be worrying about, putting food on the table. You need to be focusing on the content and what you're delivering and the passion you're putting behind it, which is very clear in talking to you, which is nice to see.
Thank you.
So last question, which is anyone listening to this who is new to e-commerce, is there any tips or anything they should be doing before they get started to really give them the confidence they're on the path to success?
Listen to your customers, because your customers have all the answers. Whether that's looking at the analytics, looking at what they're buying, or literally talking to them, they have all the answers. So if you've got a product idea and you haven't yet even hit go on the manufacturing, go and take a stand at a market where you think your target customer are and talk to them about your product. Or if you are up and running and you feel like you're hitting a brick wall, go listen to your customers for a bit. Ask them some questions. Ask them why they buy from you and not from someone else. Ask them what they love, what they hate about your product. And you will quite quickly get regrounded in why it is what you're doing and what you should be doing. So yeah, listen to the customers. They really are so clever, so much clever than the rest of us.
I think that's very sound advice in any industry. In my industry, in software, listen to the customers, because they usually tell you what you want or what they want and what makes it work. So yeah, very sound advice. Very much so. Well, thank you very much, Chloë, for your time, and thanks for joining us today. And I wish you all the best. It's been great having you on.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation, and good luck with the show. Thank you, Mackie.